Hi everyone, welcome. We're down here in my wormery preparing to check in on what I call my mixed box of worms because it's got 3 different types of worm species living in it. It's a common arrangement that a lot of people just sort of either refer to as like the red worm mix or even kind of by a trade name, fairly common seller, the Uncle Jim mix, because I think that's the sort of red worm mix that they sell too, and they're pretty big in the industry. Over here in the mixed bin, it's kind of cool that we're treating this as a single system, not buddied up with any other systems, because it is my only mixed red worm population. Everything else I've got is a specific breed of worm per bin, according to my labeling. Whether or not it really is or not is a mystery. Some of these top coverings are really holding up well. Not only those sheets of newspaper that were put out here brand new last time, but this feeding zone indicator coffee filter holding up pretty good. Now, the stuff we're going to be checking in on, what they got fed last time was some radish leaves and some banana peel is going to be left, I assume, but probably not much of the actual banana. After 10 days, they've had a good chance at going at it. Although the banana was put in here whole, I don't recall breaking it, so they would have had to have actually gotten into it or somehow busted through the wall of it. But I do expect to find a banana peel, and I don't know what kind of condition. I guess this is just like the leftover coffee filter that had been our feeding zone indicator last time. Got repurposed. And that's what we'll do with this one too, since today's feeding is also including a day's worth of coffee plus the coffee filter becomes the replacement feeding zone indicator after we feed on the opposite side. But I always like to first check in on how the previous side's doing. And I tell you, I can still feel the contents of this banana still kind of squishing around in there. So there's definitely leftovers here, and that's kind of interesting, I think, about this back and forth ping-pong style feedings, that something that might take them a little while to break down can just continue to go, despite the fact that you've now also placed in the next feeding for these little guys. So the feeding will go relatively uninterrupted, other than us examining it. So I'm not going to try to like break up the banana or see if there's any worms inside of it. Somehow, if it's still squishy inside, I'm assuming it's not really been breached. I mean, if we can somehow catch a glimpse of what's going on inside, I can see a lot of juicy banana insides through the peel on the end where the little stem of it had been and broke off. So it does seem like there's a whole lot of banana to be eaten still over there. And my guess is that it just needs to get to some sort of a level of decomposition on its own before the worms can move in and really start to take advantage of it. Because after 10 days you would think that they would have already gone to town on that thing, but evidently not. Still sitting here, but we're not going to supplement the bedding, we're not going to add anything, we're going to pretty much put things back more or less the way we found them. And let it continue so that the next time we come in here we can once again check. And at that point we'll be back in here to feed again in the same space. So at that point, whether there's still going to be any banana peel remaining, which there might be, it'll just coexist with whatever we decide to feed next time. And that's kind of cool because the banana peel will last a little longer even after the inside of the fruit has been eaten. That's going to be an interesting remnant to remind us of what had been there before. And then even with what we're feeding today, you might have noticed it. Something that's going to end up being in here for a long time as a reminder that we fed pumpkin is the stem itself. And I kind of like that idea, you know, if the next feeding were to consist of maybe avocado, where it's got a really tough shell, it's got a pretty tough pit. If our next feeding were to utilize stuff like that, then I just think it would be kind of cool to have little trace remains of certain types of things that have a part of it that takes a little longer to get broken down. I mean, banana peel, yeah, it might still be around during the next check-in, but I have a feeling if we were to check in on it again at a feeding downstream of that, even further in the future, it might not have the sort of staying power of, say, a pumpkin stem. So we've definitely created a good size opening here, and I thought that it would be a nice idea to beef up the supply of bedding in here. I mean, they are getting this old coffee filter as supplementary bedding to just be nibbled on and enjoyed as now bedding rather than a marker for ourselves. And I guess just to add a little bit here, I have my collection of prepared bedding here, which I probably should have had on the ready already. So apologies for the pause there to get my stuff together. I do like the idea of adding bedding to feedings. And in this system, I think, we've got a good level already, but we can certainly strive to boost things up. And I'm curious to see how this is all going to fit in here, because it's a good bit of stuff. So let's just dump it in. Seems like a good portion of it is still kind of frozen to itself. I guess it doesn't matter if stuff is sort of piled up, because it sort of has to be, because there is so much of it. Definitely a nice generous feeding. But if you've ever seen this stuff after it's thawed out, you're going to know that a lot of it just turns right into juice, so it's another good reason to have some good absorbent material in his bedding right below it. It can just be there to suck up some of that yummy pumpkin juice as it starts to come out of the thawing fruit. And I don't know, to me that just seems like a better idea than it sitting at the bottom of the system as a puddle. Probably doesn't make a whole lot of difference though. Before we backfill with the existing material, why don't we just give them one more little bonus handful of bedding to cover things up. And you know what, before I forget, I've also got my worm chow here on the ready. I'd be ashamed to have something on the ready and not use it. We're just going to dress up the whole feeding with a little bit of my worm chow. I am preparing to create a new batch, so I am motivated to try to do away with what little bit I've got remaining, but we're not going to go overboard. We're going to just give them what we just spread in on top of the coffee there. A little bonus food, and that's our feeding now, with the kind of a weird protruding component to this feeding. Hopefully I don't scare myself when I probe down into there in a future check-in to see what's going on. This big stick under the level of the material. Even though the level is a little bit off, it's a little bit higher over on this edge. I'm not sure if it's visible on the camera, but it is. I've got a feeling that ain't gonna last. I got a feeling that that side's going to collapse once all that pumpkin starts to thaw out, and especially once the worms start nibbling on it. And now we've relabeled our system to show where the most recent feeding has been, right over on this side. And next time we come back, we'll see how that banana's doing, but some sort of new food's going to end up going in there, and I'm going to have to keep an eye out on what presents itself as an option. Something that's got a, I don't know, sort of a component to it that's expected to take a while. I guess the avocado was a pretty good example. If one happens across my way that could be used in this in a future feeding, well, it'll definitely be placed into my freezer for safekeeping until that time comes. But that's it for our check-in. So that time will be who knows how long. It's been, 10 days since the last check-in, and that is kind of like the average check-in these days. Seems like I get into a little bit of a schedule where I've got 10 days between one feeding, and by the time I get around to feeding my whole inventory, they've all had 10-day intervals since their previous feedings, all kind of leapfrogging to the next available time for me to come down here and feed them. Alright everyone, that's it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. If you did, as always, please don't forget to leave me a quick thumbs up before you go. That's always really appreciated. And if you haven't done so already, please also consider subscribing to the channel. That's very much appreciated as well. Alright everyone, have a great day. Thanks for watching. Bye now.